All right, well, welcome and good evening, everyone. It is great to see you all on here, and I so appreciate that you are taking the time to learn about something that could quite literally change your life. I've got to say that I'm fired up about this presentation. I'm fired up about our special guest. And just before I introduce Dr. John Harmon, I just want to share a little bit about me and my story and why I'm so passionate about sharing this out. So, I am Beth Blackmore. I'm a health and empowerment coach that has switched gears a little bit over the past couple of years after going through my own health journey that began over 6 years ago when I woke up from my program mind and I chose to do something about it, changing up my lifestyle habits, my food choices. I lost 60 pounds as a result. And I realized that with this
Wow.
reinvention that I was also wanting to do more with my life. I left my government career in HR behind to pursue my passion in coaching others to empower themselves through their mind, through their health. But about 16 months ago, I was introduced to a revolutionary phototherapy modality in the field of regenerative science and age reversal. Diane Hunt, who's on the call tonight, knew that I needed this tool in my toolkit. And she was right. This patch has had a huge impact on me, on my health, on my business as a coach, the health of my loved ones, and those that I have shared this with. And you are actually going to hear from some of them a little later. And so when I first started patching, it was May of 2024. I actually split the first order with my mom, and I did what any good daughter would do. I patched my mom. So my mom, who's 77 years old, she started experiencing benefits within a day of patching. Her debilitating knee pain and inflammation that she had had for years eased up. She was actually going to a physio 3 times a week. In that first week, back at her physiotherapist, the physiotherapist noticed that she had more mobility, less inflammation, and she asked what she was doing differently. She mentioned that her daughter put this sticker on her. But my mom also started to have better quality of sleep, deeper sleep. She noticed more energy during the day. She was able to return to her regular activities with walking and gardening and swimming, caring for those younger grandkids. And for me, the benefits have been life changing as well. I started sleeping through the night a couple of days after I started patching, having vivid dreams, which I hadn't had in years. I no longer experience this lower back pain, this compression tightness that I had on and off for years. So, no more visits to my chiro. Sorry, Kelly. No more stiff and sore joints. I recover quicker after working out. My energy, my mental clarity, my focus have improved. I'm also pleased to report that I do feel this sense of calm in this crazy world. But what truly lights me up is that I know that the best is yet to come. My body is healing and repairing and age reversing thanks to this patch. So, on that note, I would love to turn it over to my special guest tonight, Dr. John Harmon. He has graciously accepted my invite to be on the call tonight. He has a fantastic presentation ahead. He's a wealth of knowledge and experience. So, in fact, let me read off his extensive bio. So, Dr. John Harmon, married to Carla Harmon, Carla with a K, father of 8 children of his own, two stepchildren, grandfather of 27, Bachelor of Science degree in human biology. He attended the University of Utah from 1983 to 86, graduated summa cum laude with a Doctor of Chiropractic degree from the Los Angeles College of Chiropractic in 89, board certified in neurofeedback and quantitative EEG. He speaks German. He's ICP, so that's an IASIS certified practitioner, author of the book How to Reverse Aging, a comprehensive guide to copper peptides, author of the book The Reverse Aging Power of Epitalin, host of the Root Cause Holistic Health podcast. He's a keynote speaker at the Energy Healing Conferences in Utah and Idaho, former founder and former president of Clear Mind Idaho. He's a presidential director with this company, LifeWave, as am I. He also rocked out in his youth. He played the drums in the 70s in a 70s rock band. But most importantly, he is the marbles champion of his elementary school. And does that bring back memories of me at St. Nicholas Schoolyard? But such a pleasure, Dr. John Harmon, to have you on the call tonight.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wish I still had all those marbles. And I'm not talking about the marbles up here. I'm talking about the actual marbles and the steelies, we used to call them. Uh, it's great to, I have some information tonight that I'm really excited about sharing with you. Um, I'm 71 years old right now, and I feel so much different than I did 5 years ago when I started patching. So much so that I had so many changes that you're going to find out about in this presentation that it motivated me to find out why that could happen scientifically. And that's what led to writing the books. I have to explain my eye. The eyes have it tonight. A little incident in the backyard getting the yard ready. A little speck got in my eye and it rubbed so much that it caused a little subconjunctival hemorrhage. It's not harmful. It just looks like Halloween. And I thought about coming as a pirate with a patch, but I thought that would look a little bit odd. So I hope it doesn't alarm people who come in who didn't hear my explanation. Um, yes, I have some slides. I I want them to be really impactful for you in your journey. We're going to be talking about what is the normal expected way that we go into aging and how to reverse that. So here we go. I'm going to get right to it. And I don't need to share the sound. Oops, I gave you a preview of one of my slides here. Okay. Oops. Why did that not do that? We don't know. It needs to be right there. All right. I am here tonight with a very urgent message. There are things that are happening to every single one of us in the world that are causing us to age faster and die younger. And tonight we're not only going to be talking about getting older in age and the things that cause us to do that, but how to reverse that. We're not just talking about, stopping getting older. We're not talking about going from fast aging to slow aging, but tonight we're talking about age reversal. David Schmidt, the founder of LifeWave, has said that we are about a third of the way there, and I'll explain that when we get into this. So the title of this presentation is called How to Reverse Aging with GHK Copper Peptide. That's what the CU stands for, is copper. She said, I wrote some books. If anyone's interested in getting an autographed copy, if you scan the code, you get one. If you go to Amazon, you don't. You just get one that's not signed. Um, this is the other book. We're not going to be talking about that. And there's a QR code for that too. I'm going to have, I'm going to read this one paragraph because it sets the stage for understanding how powerful this peptide is. The use of copper peptides can be likened to turning a key and unlocking a realm of possibilities where aging is no longer considered an inevitable decline, but a continuation of life with sustained health and vitality. This is the main thing we're talking about tonight. It suggests a future where aging gracefully isn't just about managing our normal, in quotes, I should have put, decline, but about thriving well into our golden years and enjoying our maintained state of health. That's on page 275. This slide is I when I started preparing these PowerPoint presentations, 5 years ago, in about 2023, I captured this slide as a screenshot from PubMed. And I'm showing you this because it says there are 13 pages of published studies. This is what it looks like today, 2 years later. There are 15 pages of research papers written about the GHK copper peptide. This graph will help us. This is a description of the currently accepted way things happen. So over on the left, you got functional capacity and then time on the bottom. we start out with robustness. You know, we got it going on, man. I'm working out, I'm eating healthy, I'm doing the right stuff, and then something happens. I get injured, I have an illness, I have emotional trauma, whatever it is, it kicks us down, and we start to decline. We get we have recovery. We we do the things that we think we need to do to get back to robustness, but we don't get all the way there. And now something else happens that kicks me down. Nobody gets out unscathed, but I'm going to tell you it's what happens. What is the shape of your body and your nervous system, your immune system at the bottom of this little trough right here, these troughs that determine whether or not we get up to here. So we recover and then we go in life, we're going along, and then something really severe happens. And now this is the kind of accepted, you go into frailty, into dependence, and then disability. This it's my goal to not have this play any part in my life. And I hope you have the same goals. We're going to talk just a little bit about shortly about goals. You know, we've all made a goal before, even if it's just to make a sandwich. That's a goal. It's not a very elegant one, but it's a goal. So I'm going to point some things out maybe you haven't looked at before. We have goals. We start out with my slide's not working. There we go. We have foundational goals. Am I going to get married? How many kids? Where am I going to live? And then we have long-term goals. What kind of job am I going to do? What are my interests? Where do my passions lie? What brings me joy? I've always told my kids, my grandkids, and even some of my younger patients, figure out what it is that you love to do that brings you joy and that you're passionate about. And then figure out how to make a living at it. And then you're not going to work, you're going to play. We have, the daily goals. Am I going to be someone who works out? Am I going to have a healthy diet? Is fast food part of my plan? But this, I really want you to think about tonight. Have you actually projected out into your older age? What is it going to look like? I also tell my kids and grandkids, if you can't define it, if you can't write it down, you cannot have it. And so I'm hoping to spark some creation through neuroplasticity, some new wiring in the brain to have you think about these things. The next few slides, there's a little bit of a lag intentionally because I want you to take a second or two to think about this. You don't have to, like in a black magic way, look into a crystal ball, but it illustrates the point. Your future self awaits. Design your older years. So ask yourself these questions. What will I be like when I'm old in age? We all get older in age, but what am I going to be like in my biological age? Will I even remember who I am? Will I be meeting a new person in my house every 15 minutes? Will I be able to travel? Will I be hooked up to machines? Will my joints work without pain? Will I be dependent upon someone else for my care? Or will I be independent and able to take care of myself? Will I be a passive observer in my own decline, or will I be an empowered participant of avoiding that decline? Which do you choose? What are the destructive mechanisms that cause our bodies to age faster? Can we do anything about it? Some things are definitely beyond our control. Accidents, things can happen, but we can't influence those. We want to talk about the things that we can influence and discover those things that we can do something about. Why do we age faster? What are the actual mechanisms that cause some people to age faster, look much older than their age, and die prematurely? 3 years ago, I went to my 50-year high school reunion, and there were some people there who looked like they could beat my dad. And I wanted to go up and I said, "Man, what have you been doing, or what have you not been doing?" Is a better question. So here are the top causes of early death. Telomere shortening. For those of you who aren't familiar with that term, let's talk about that a little bit. Think your shoelaces, the plastic caps on the end of your shoelaces. These things are these aren't really what chromosomes look like, but our chromosomes are made up of our genes, and they have to separate in order to replicate when we're making a new cell. This illustrates a person that's older than this person's. These are representing the telomeres. This person has short telomeres. You can go to a lab and have your telomeres measured, and they can tell you about how much long you have left. Not exactly, but pretty close. So the telomeres, the genes are made of certain coding. The telomeres have a very specific code, and they're kind of like throwaway pieces. So each time a cell divides and you have to replicate the genes, a little bit of that ending comes off and it gets shorter and shorter as we age. Genomic instability. What is that? Genes are damaged and they can't do their job or do what we call coding, signaling your body to do a thing from that gene, given that there are 2,600 different gene expressions from each gene. But here's what happens. We have our genes here. We have radiation can cause damage to the genes. Chemicals can cause damage. Metabolic processes can cause damage. What is that? Well, the reason we have a urinary tract and the bowel is to get rid of the stuff that'll kill us if we keep it inside of us, because we don't need that stuff. We have to get rid of it. So harmful things in the world or your body can all damage the genes, and then the cell eventually dies. So what does the research say about GHK and how it affects our telomeres and our genes? The GHK copper peptide resets 4,200 of our genes to a younger state. You've probably heard David Schmidt say this millions of times. Well, maybe not that many, but a lot. And this has to do with repairing the damage that happens to our genes. It also protects genes against damage. So sun damage, radiation, and chemicals. And it helps to lengthen our telomeres. That is the role of GHK. Here's a little diagram here. Normal genes, normal expressions, you get some damage, they get altered. Then you have altered expression. In comes the GHK copper peptide, resets to a younger state, a normal expression of that gene, and then a younger you. Next, mitochondrial dysfunction. Does everyone know what mitochondria are? So you can have, they're so small, but they make energy. Muscle cells have about 20,000 mitochondria in them. An egg, a human egg, has 100,000, and they vary between cells. But mitochondrial dysfunction, that's what makes our energy. It's got to make the gas for the machine to run. If you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you have low energy production. Because of that, cells don't have the energy to work. So they can't be the perfect little cell and do their job. And then what happens is toxins start to build up. It's not just about not having enough energy to work out. It's your cells don't have the gas to run the machine. and the cell can't detox. Cell damage occurs. Cells can't repair, and they become zombie cells. That's actually a term. Those are cells that aren't doing any work because they can't, but they're sucking up your resources. They demand to be fed, but they don't do anything in return. Toxins get stored in the tissue, in the fatty tissues, in the liver, the kidneys, the brain. More damage occurs and that cell dies. Leads to apoptosis, cellular death. So, what does the research say about GHK and mitochondrial dysfunction? Well, the GHK copper peptide is known in the literature. It's a key component of energy production in the mitochondria, and it enhances an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase. So it's involved in the final phase of making energy, ATP. It enhances oxygenation during exercise as well. Next topic, cognitive decline, the slow disappearance of oneself. I've said for many years, I have three goals when I'm 90. I want to remember who I am. I don't want to be meeting a new person in my house, and I want to be the one who's healthy enough to go travel and visit other people, and I'm not stuck at home somewhere. If those three things are true when you're 90, you got a lot going on. Here's some brain facts. Research shows the average healthy adult loses, and this is an updated number. They used to say 9,000. It's more than that. It's about 10,000 neurons per day, which totals 3.65 million per year. This decline begins at about the age of 30. We form new neurons at about 700 to 1,500 per day, mostly in a part of the brain it's called the hippocampus. That's for memory and learning, which is about 250,000 a year. So I've asked people in my brain practice, Clear Mind Idaho, that I sold last month, because LifeWave's going so great, what are you doing to decrease that loss? And what are you doing to increase the growth of new neurons? Here's a little chart that you can determine where you are. Average healthy adult loses about 10,000 a day. We gain about 700 back. Net loss 9,300. Highly active adults lose about 8,000, build up to 1,500. Net loss 6,500 a day. Aging or neurodegenerative lose up to 20,000 per day. 300 or fewer is what they make. Net loss accelerates significantly the further someone goes into that. So there was a study done using the GHK copper peptide. Actually, it was done using the X39 that elevates copper peptide. And they measured, one of the measurements was brain coherence. What is that? Brain coherence is a measure of the synchronization of the signals between two sites and may be interpreted as an expression of their functional interaction. So the two frontal lobes, the two temporal lobes, the left side of the brain does different things than the right. And they have to talk to each other. And the left side of the brain will say, hey, this is what I see. What are you seeing? Okay, I see this. The left side of the brain says, I see the stripes in her dress. And the right said, well, I see the colors. It's black and white, or it's these colors. So they have to compare information in order to form a complete picture. Coherence quantifies the degree of interaction or communication and shared information between brain sites. So when you have the right amount of coherence, it's normal. It's just right. And the brain functions much better. Hypercoherence is when brain sites are not functioning in an efficient, interdependent fashion. They have too much crosstalk. They're overly connected or locked together. Hypercoherence, remember this, the more areas in our brain where we have hypercoherence, the more autistic we are. So hypercoherence is too much. Hypocoherence, This is called poor inter-site interaction and is an indication of diminished cognitive efficiency. The more sites you have, pairs, site pairs, where you have hypocoherence, the more into cognitive decline you are. Now, remember those two things, autistic cognitive decline. When you look at these brain maps that we're going to show you, hypocoherence, not enough. So these brain map studies were done, and to orient you, this is looking at the top of the head. The nose would be up where the session one, session two, session three. The areas of red and super blue, there you got hypercoherence and hypocoherence. This brain over a 6 week period started to get a lot more normal, and the red totally disappeared over 6 weeks. Here's another one. This person, we call this in my industry, the EEG industry, is that person has a brain on fire. And this 67-year-old female, interesting, she's a manual therapist specializing in cranial sacral massage. She's helping everybody else and her brain's on fire. So much more normal over a 6 week period. Not totally normal, still has some areas of concern, but you just keep doing what you're doing and it gets better and better. Here's another one, hypercoherence everywhere, much more normal and symmetrical side to side, which we want to see. So what does this research say about the GHK regarding the brain? Well, it when you look at the brain, and evaluate the anatomy of the brain, it has what's called the blood-brain barrier, and that's like a big sieve to keep out stuff that shouldn't be there. Bacteria, toxins. It tries to protect us by shielding things from getting in there, but you have to have a way of getting the stuff you need. It is the GHK copper peptide that transports copper through the blood-brain barrier and goes up there and says, here's a gift. Here's a gift. Take this copper and make neurons, synapses, and neurotransmitters. You have to have copper in order to make those things. And it increases production of what's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What is that? That's the stuff your brain makes when you're doing new tasks. This is what neuroplasticity is all about. It says, your brain makes these decisions. It says, you know what? She's done that every day for at least a minute. Let's make some new neurons so that she can do it better. And it builds new neurons, new connections, so you have finer control over those things. That's what learning is about, learning a new dance. Awkward at first, you get better and better because you have new neurons that give you finer control of those motions. GHK copper peptide promotes neural progenitor differentiation. So the cells that differentiate into different cells up in the brain, it increases neural growth factor. All of these things are contributory to a healthy brain. And simply by elevating your GHK copper peptide, your brain can start doing all of these things much better. So there were some studies done, and they showed that if someone has a high concentration of copper peptide and you have a brain injury, you have head trauma or concussion or something, there's much less swelling in the brain if that happens. And it has the GHK has neuroprotective properties and helps prevent cognitive decline. It has mood stabilizing properties in the brain. That's why so many people are saying, yeah, my anxiety went away. First of all, if someone ever calls something and then they name a disease after it, make sure you point that out to them. Say, never say that again, unless you want to keep it. Words are powerful. If you claim it, it'll stay. GHK copper peptide beneficially altered the expression of human genes involved in neuron function by 50%. This is in PubMed in one of those studies. It alleviated neuronal apoptosis when someone had an intracerebral hemorrhage. So if you have a brain bleed, the amount of cells that die is much less if you have GHK copper peptide. Anti-anxiety, talked about that. Okay, so this is why I used, and they still do, the X39 patch in my former clinic. It checks another box in the brain health space. Okay, next topic, stem cell exhaustion. We lose our ability to replace cells that are dying in our body if we have stem cell exhaustion. What does the research say about that regarding stem cells? The GHK copper peptide in stem cell activation activates the production of pluripotent stem cells, directs stem cells towards damaged tissue. It's like a Pied Piper. Hey guys, we need a little help over here. Bring out the stem cells. We got some fixing to do. Direct them where they're supposed to go, like a beacon. Activates genes associated with stem cell production. GHK kicks starts regenerative potential of stem cells. And you've heard David say it awakens or restores dormant or exhausted stem cells. This is what he's talking about. It's all in the research. Next topic, cardiovascular disease, stroke. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because, get it, heart? Um, because that's where my biggest changes happened that I'll tell you about. Cardiovascular disease, number one cause of death globally. A high fibrinogen level, remember that word, like fibrinogen, kind of like fiber, but different. Fibrinogen level is the number one predictor of probability of having a stroke and you are 2.5 times more likely to have a stroke if this is elevated. Decreased oxygen to the heart muscle causes myocardial infarction. So you have high fibrinogen level, number one predictor of stroke, but then you have on the other end myocardial infarction, not enough oxygen. What does the literature say about that regarding heart health? It helps keep that big word, fibrinogen synthesis levels normal. So it helps prevent the cells from being so sticky that they stick together too much and form a clot. That's what fibrinogen. You have to have some stickiness to your cells in case you get a cut. They have to clot. If you didn't have fibrinogen, you'd bleed out. You have to have some. But GHK is known in the literature, it increases myostatin gene expression almost tenfold. Myostatin inhibits heart failure and it helps new blood vessels form to promote circulation. Briefly, anywhere in the body where we have the need to form more blood vessels, whether it's you got a big gash from a sword in your thigh 1,000 years ago, or your heart is sending a signal of hypoxia, not enough oxygen to the brain, there's a whole chain of events that happen. The GHK is sent out on site. It activates enzymes that dissolve little holes into the damaged tissue so that capillaries can grow into it really quickly. Isn't that the coolest thing? Huh. This is why they call it the emergency response peptide. Think about it. If it elevates stem cells and it allows you to quickly grow capillaries into the damaged tissue, this is a good thing to have when there's an emergency. It helps prevent blood from clotting too much. That's the fibrinogen connection. It helps repair collagen and elastin, which restores integrity to blood vessel walls. Collagen gives it the strength, elastin gives it the flexibility. If you have strong, elastic, stretchable arteries, like your aorta, you are much less likely to get an aortic aneurysm. And I always ask people, when does someone find out they had a burst aortic aneurysm? They don't. Their family finds out. That's what took my brother-in-law out 15 years ago. He's getting ready to work out, go work out. Aortic aneurysm split, went in between the linings of the aorta and split all the way down into his vessels in his legs. So this is one of the things that the GHK copper peptide helps repair over a long period of time. And this ain't nothing you're going to feel in one day. It's something that takes years, maybe a decade to repair. Helps to prevent the oxidation of LDL, so decreases the risk of atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. So LifeWave did a study. It was an organ function study, and they did all kinds of measurements with the heart. And they found from their measurements and their testing, the cardiovascular systems acted 2 months younger after 6 weeks of using the patch. This is why I have said for almost 5 years, for every day I wear the patch, my cardiovascular system gets a day and a third younger. This played out for me over a period of 2 years. Next topic, cancer. There are no claims here. It's the number two killer globally. The incidence is, as you've seen globally, it's going up faster than it was 4 years ago. What does the research say about GHK and cancer? Again, no claims are made regarding cancer. However, this is what the research shows. GHK helps reset the programmed cell death cycle in several different types of cancer cells. What does that mean? What are cancer cells? Those are cells that just don't get the signal to stop making new ones, and they just keep multiplying, multiplying, multiplying. And if it's in your bone marrow, it's a different type of cancer. If it's in your liver, it's a different type. And they just keep expanding and pushing on their neighbors and killing the cells that are next to them. That's cancer. They don't get the message that you gotta die. You can't keep doing that. It inhibits 25 genes that are associated with a predisposition to get cancer. It helps repair, remember when we talked about genomic instability, it helps repair DNA so that cancers don't form. If you get a mutation in damage to a gene, and then it replicates, and now you have cells with damaged chromosomes, damaged genes, and they can mutate. They can form mutations, and then you might have cancer. So the clock is ticking. It's ticking. What can we do about these things? So there are different ways someone can increase their copper peptide in their body. You can get infusions or injections. You can get products from dermatologists, their creams, lotions. The dermatologists were the first ones to embrace using the GHK because of its beneficial effects on skin and hair. Or you can use this new technology called the photobiomodulation patch. I'm introducing you to the X39. Any potential benefit of the patch can be determined by what the literature and the study. Oops, I pushed a button too early. Hold on. So, what does the literature say? What do the literature and the study say about the effect and actions of this copper peptide? The studies most of the studies had been done before LifeWave, the company, even existed. So if you want to know what the potential benefits of wearing that patch is, just turn to the literature, the stuff that we just went over. It's known since 1977 what that peptide does. So there's LifeWave has a published study in the Internal Medicine Research Journal, Volume 6, Issue 1. And this was a double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trial that explored the impact of wearing the X39 patch over a period of a week. And they say, well, why just 1 week? Because once they know what it raises, they don't have to keep doing it for months and months. And it's expensive to do that. But here's what they did. And by the way, this research paper was presented to the US Patent Office in order to receive the patent for the X39. I just love it when people say, well, I don't think it works because they don't do studies on diseases. Well, it's published, and this is why we got the patent. So here's what they did. 60 people randomized into two groups. One tube of blood was drawn, The first day, more blood was taken the 24, they said they drew the blood before they started. More blood was taken in 24 hours and 7 days. What was interesting is that over the first 24 hours, there wasn't a large increase. It was a slight increase, but after 7 days, it was a huge increase. That was the study that was presented to the FDA, to the US Patent Office. So, how does the X39 work? I call it the holy grail of anti-aging, more like reverse aging. It's made of organic nanocrystals, and don't confuse that with nanoparticles and nanobots. It has to do with the size of the crystals, nothing else. Nothing comes from the patch into the body. It's formulated to activate your copper peptide production. Wow, are you kidding me? This reactivates your own stem cells because that's known in the literature. We just went over that, didn't we? So, what actually happens when you put one on your skin? In order to understand that, I want you to visualize you go out in the sun and the sunlight hits your skin, and somehow magically we convert cholesterol um, into vitamin D. By the way, if any of you are taking statin drugs, you need to get off of those as soon as you can. Cholesterol is one of the most important molecules in your body. All of the insulation on your neurons in your brain are made of cholesterol. All of your hormones start out as cholesterol, and your body changes it just like it does for vitamin D. It changes 7-dehydrocholesterol into vitamin D. Your skin health, your liver, your brain, your hormones are dependent upon cholesterol. I have to say that because there's so much misinformation about cholesterol. It was based, the need to take a statin drug was based on a flawed study. We can go over that another time. But the sunlight hits your skin and you get the message. You go, hey, start up the vitamin D factory. This is what happens. You make more vitamin D when when the UVB hits your skin. So compare that to, and to further help you understand how these work. You go into a jewelry store, you go up to the diamond cabinet, and the diamonds are clear, but you see all these colors, these orange and red and blue and purple. And what is that? Well, the white light of the bright light shining on them gets separated out or refracted into the individual wavelengths that appear as separate colors. Your body is the bright white light. We emit frequencies of light. Japanese scientists figured out in 2009. We glow. It's infrared heat, and it's also visible light spectrum. It's just not bright enough to see. So your body is the power source that powers the patch, not an outside source. We place them on specific points on the body. And the reason we do that is because they did the research on specific points, because there are named points around the body that you don't have to say, well, it's 2 inches above or 6 inches below this or whatever. You say on this acupuncture point, it's well known in the literature. They did that for consistency and to rule out any variabilities on how the patches would affect the body when placed in a different spot. David Schmidt has said you can put them anywhere on the body, does all kinds of wonderful things: rapid pain relief, reduced inflammation, supports wound healing, energy, vitality, mental clarity, and sport performance, faster recovery. This is what I've noticed at 71, that I don't get sore and I can work out for a long time. Improve skin appearance. So how do we use it? You wear it for 12 hours on and 12 hours off to repair and rejuvenate, then throw it away, put a new patch on, and repeat the next day. You can wear more than one at a time. Drink plenty of water. Your body's going to start cleaning out the old house. You might even do a little remodeling over a period of time. And you don't want to stop. Once you start elevating your stem cells, you don't want to leave the house halfway remodeled. Athletes all over the world are using this. This is the former strongest man in the world. He has some of our patches on. Football player, all of these athletes. most sports teams are using him. Michael Phelps and the U.S. men's swim team were the first team to use them and won all those medals, got accused of doping. There was no doping. The world and the U.S. doping agency said, nope, that's not doping. David Beckham, other athletes. This slide right here, I should have warned you, but this slide is actually near and dear to my heart because I showed this slide at an energy healing conference in St. George. I think it was about 4 years ago. And the story is the 6-year-old got the tip of his finger cut off in a car door. And the father said he wanted the surgeon to sew the tip back on, and the surgeon refused initially because he said it's going to die. There's no capillaries connecting it. Remember what I said about what GHK does? Rapid growth of capillaries into damaged tissue. So the father said, I have this patch. I'll take full responsibility. It died. This is the black of necrosis, but there was rapid infiltration of capillary growth, bringing oxygen and nutrients, saved the fingertip. About 3 years, 2 or 3 years later, I got a urgent message on Facebook, and someone reached out to me, said, hey, I saw the slide that you did in St. George. My cousin, a friend of my cousin's little boy got his fingertip cut off. 5 surgeons have refused to sew it back on. So because of this slide, this is why it means a lot to me. Yet another little boy saved a fingertip. That was really beautiful. Skin changes. I mean, look at this right here. This is over a 2-year period. So people who say, well, I didn't notice anything after 4 days of wearing the patch. Don't be silly. This is a long-term restoration and regeneration. It's not like a blood pressure drug. I take the drug and now my blood pressure goes down. It sometimes takes years. Another testimonial, this gal was having 25 apnea events in 1 hour. She looks half dead. I mean, I don't say that in a pejorative way. It's just, how could it not? She's not sleeping. Changed her life. I have a few more. This guy called them stubborn cells, and that's all I'm going to say. Over less than 2 months, right here, skin changes, beautiful. Whole body changes, hair, skin, weight loss. Why do we lose weight? Why do people say just use an X39? I've lost weight because you have more efficient use. You've gotten rid of a lot of toxins because your cells have proper mitochondrial function, and you're not storing all of those toxins in your fat cells. And your fat says, well, I don't need this. I don't need all this fat anymore because I don't have those toxins to store. Hair changes, skin, scar changes. Here's July 2017, July 2018, 1 month of using the patch. Look at that. And that's because the GHK increases collagen repair, but also collagen destruction where those fibers aren't needed, like the cross linkages in scar tissue. This is this woman, 93 years old. She lost 41 pounds of inflammation, no more GERD, no more neuropathy, arthritis, a lot of things that I mean, look at her here compared to here. She looks a lot more vibrant. This little boy got stung by a bee overnight using the patch. That's what it was in the morning. And the company doesn't say use them on pets, but somebody I know put a patch on their pet because the eye looked like that and went to that. This is me on the left, right before I started using the X39. And then this is this is like a month ago, had another headshot done. My hair started turning back to brown from back to front. And a friend of mine told me, do you realize your hair's turning back to brown? I said, no, it's not. So she took a picture of the top of my head. And then this was like, I don't know, probably about 2 years after this picture was taken. Friend of mine, skin changes. Look at they call them liver spots. They have nothing to do with the liver. That's melon deposits. And look how that has changed. Okay, so long-term results, like I said, it's not overnight, but things start to happen, and you can meet with the person who invited you to this, and they can talk about some of those changes, and you can actually monitor them with some forms that we have, symptom tracker. This I mentioned was close to my heart. There's that organ function study done, but this is related to my own experience. Your results may be different, but this is what happened to me. I had PVCs my entire life. That stands for preventricular contractions. I did not know I had a right bundle branch block at that time of RBBB. If you don't know what an RBBB is, look it up on PubMed. This was my former future. RBB is associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality and indicates a poorer prognosis in patients with acute myocardial infarction. So that was the situation. The irony is that I didn't even know I had it until I was using the X39 for 4.5 months. So here's the timeline. Started using I knew in about 1970 that I had PVCs. April 2020 is when I started using the patches. August 2020, the PVCs became really rhythmic, and it was really odd because it was every fifth beat, day and night. My heart would stop for a second, start back up. Every fifth beat, day and night. I was laying in bed and I'd say to my wife, "Hey, my my heart is stopping like every 5 beats just for a second, then it starts back up." My first stress echo was done in August. Now, mind, I didn't know I had it. 2 weeks later, the PVCs were gone. Why? Because I was wearing the patch. That's what I think. Then I had a stress echocardiogram done because I had those funky things going on in my. And you see right here, the baseline ECG shows sinus rhythm with a right bundle branch block right there. Year and a half later, I had another one. I'm going to zoom in right there where the crease is in that. Right bundle branch block is no longer present. Two different doctors have said, we've never seen one of those go away. Then I got this report from my chart. Dr. Ryder's reviewed. Perfectly normal, no issues. Your heart looks great. So that changed my life. One of the messages I want you to get from this presentation that I've done tonight is that you already have the power, my dear Dorothy. You've always had the power. You just had to learn it for yourself. So I hope you learned it for yourself tonight. The power that powers the patch is you, your energy. David figured out how to capture part of it and reflect it back into the body so that it turns on beneficial pathways. I love this slide because that's my that's my thought all day. I'm getting younger. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't been patched yet, you need to get patched. You need to experience this technology. Get back to the person who invited you to this. And if you are going, I had to put this up here because if you're going to the conference in Anaheim and would like an autographed copy there, I'm only going to be doing it Tuesday and Wednesday, but once the conference starts, I'll be working, spending time with my team. So you can get in touch with me through Facebook Messenger down at the conference. Here are those QR codes if you just want to get one now and you're not going to the conference. And I hope that you also have a goal of not going into that frailty, that slide into frailty and disability like everybody thinks older people get when we age. And also think of some questions because after Beth has some things to say. think of some questions and write them down, and we will probably have a few minutes to answer those.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Harmon. You really brought the research to life for us. It was engaging. Love your sense of humor. I think I've got to up the ante with my presentation, that's for sure. You've inspired me, so thank you.
Awesome.
And love that, what you're doing in terms of sharing your own life experience and sharing all that you do. And love that you've had such an amazing result with your own heart function and then inspiring others with this powerful transformation. So we are going to hear from a couple others tonight, short testimonials tonight. I'd love to call on Laura, if you're able to unmute yourself. I see you there. If you can share your story tonight with us.
Thank you so much. My name is Laura. I'm here in Stillwater, Minnesota, and I have been managing my lifelong autoimmune disease with just living as naturally as possible. And I never imagined where this path would take me. It's taken me so far beyond. I started in March 20th of this year, so I've been just a little over 6 months. The very first day I experienced a dramatic drop in anxiety that I didn't even know that I had. And that has stayed with me this whole time. It's like a dulling where I don't feel triggered by things. So that's wonderful. I went from visiting the restroom 3 to 5 times every night down to 1 pretty early on, like within the first week, and that's been the same. 3 weeks in, I went from I went from having a bowel movement 1 to 2 times a week to every single day until this day. So 6 months, which that is life changing. Let's see, then, oh my gosh. Okay, so I have like a 35-year-old arm injury that's almost completely disappeared. At month 4, I realized at the dentist that 75% of my gum recession had gone back to the normal numbers. Oh my gosh, my energy, better sleep. I have so much more hair growth, which is why I started it in the beginning, even with all my health problems. My vanity was there because I was losing my hair. Oh, and actually at month 6, I got my blood work done, and the medication that I've had to take since age 11, it looks like I'm on too much now, so I'm headed towards getting off of it, which is ultimately my main goal. So I'm so grateful for it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing all that. It's like check, check, check. I love it. You're continuing to age reverse, so you got to keep us updated. But I love your journey, and thank you so much for sharing tonight. I'd love to call on Diane, my sponsor. Diane Hunt is on the call, I believe. If you're able to unmute yourself.
I'm here.
Ah, great.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Hello, everyone. Like Beth said, my name is Diane Hunt, and I was a critical care cardiac nurse for 20 years, so I definitely related to what Dr. Harmon was speaking on. And for me, I got COVID very early on, before really we even knew it was a thing. And it had effects, long-lasting effects on my lungs, especially, which I was really debilitated by because I am very active. I love to run. And I would just get winded walking my dogs. And then what was happening was I was starting to have palpitations. So that was very scary for me. I was praying probably like 5 times a day, if not more, because every time those palpitations would come on, it would be a reminder, and it would happen pretty often throughout the day, like something's not right, Diane. And I have all the natural stuff, even though I was in the medical profession for 20 years, 10 of those 20 were probably like, oh my goodness, I got to get into holistic. I got to get out of this. And so I started researching, doing all the things natural, holistic, but nothing was helping until I got the patches. And so within 24 hours, I was lucky. I was one of those, there are one patch wonders where it happens pretty quickly, where you start noticing things. I was able to start taking a deep breath. I never had palpitations again after that initial patch, which is like incredible. Do not compare yourself to me. But then now, 2.5 years on the patch, the miracles continue to happen. I really do need a list to write down because I go by memory, which is amazing now. I am so sharp. My mental clarity, my focus, my alertness, my productivity, just even like my sense of well-being, like Laura was saying, like I don't get triggered. I just have this like chill factor. And then the other thing that's happened was I've grown an inch, 1 inch at 50. Who's growing? I would like to ask, except for those that are regenerating their body with the patches. I no longer have dry eye floaters. I don't need my readers. And then the most recent thing that I've noticed is I no longer have an umbilical hernia. I've had this since my third child was born. So for 13 years, if I would bump into something, oh man, would it hurt? It's gone. Okay. I'm not saying I have like the perfect model belly, but like not to have like a little protruding outie is like the best thing for me. So, I mean, I could go on, but I want to keep those short. So thank you so much, Beth. Get on the patch.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Diane, for sharing. You're such an inspiration. And it took Diane a couple of times to reach out to me to get my attention, but I'm so glad you did. So thank you from the bottom of my heart because you've changed my life. And I just feel so blessed to be on this call and sharing this out with everybody. So thank you, Diane. And Terry, I would love for you to share your story if you're still on the call as well.
Yep, I'm here, Beth.
Perfect.
Well, I made myself a little note here because I keep forgetting some of the things because it becomes normal then, right? So I would say I would consider myself maybe one of those one patch wonders also because from the first day I put it on, I had more energy, more stamina. I was sleeping better through the night. And then everything just got better after that. Not just sleeping better, but a deep sleep. I had no afternoon, lulls or crashes where you felt tired. Um, that kind of Zen feeling about you, everything you kind of calm and, you know, in stressful situations, you still remain calm. At the beginning when I was patching, we had 3 weeks in Asia. I did not sunburn in Asia, and I am not a fan of sunscreen. So not sunscreening, no sunburn, and came home, no jet lag. And if anyone's done that, you usually feel like crap, no jet lag. I think my skin tone has evened off and, it's softer, improving. I do have my readers on, but sometimes I take them off and I don't need them for my phone anymore. So my eyes are improving. Um, Let me see, what else? Well, it's kind of an embarrassing thing, but I did have a rectal fissure. But after 1 week of patching, that pain was gone. Like that was incredible. And I also suffered from stress incontinence for over 10 years, which now has subsided. And that is like a miracle in itself. And yesterday I was doing I saw this thing on Instagram where you do this kind of like this exercise or fit test to do your biological age. And I could do all the tests for age 30, and I'm 3 months from age 60. So I figured that was pretty good. And this summer, I had the energy to keep up with my grandchildren, and it felt like 30 years ago when, my children were that age. So, and I attribute it to the patch. I always did everything natural before, and I thought I was doing really well, but this is the icing on the cake.
Amazing. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you, Terry, for
Yeah.
sharing tonight.
Oh,
Super
and
powerful.
just there was a lot of questions in the comments in the chat about hair growth. My
Yes.
oldest son, who's 36, suffered alopecia for over 10 years, and using the patch by day 6, he was growing hair, and he continues to grow it today.
Yes, amazing. Okay, I'm going to throw up that quick photo because then I'm going to share a little bit about how you can get started with LifeWave. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Terry's son, he had alopecia, as she said, for 10 years. Before the X39 patch, he started, I think it was March 1st. 6 days after patching, he's got a little bit of peach fuzz. 2.5 months later, he's got about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of hair, and it's still growing. He's having to cut it now. So super exciting results. I know people were asking about the hair growth, returning to natural hair color, as Dr. John was talking about. So really powerful stories here about hair growth. Okay, so there are 3 ways to enroll with LifeWave. Retail customer, $150 US. You know, we typically recommend, though, that we want to bring you in as a wholesale shopper. So then there's 2 other options. Preferred customer for $99 US. You're getting the wholesale pricing with a monthly subscription, or as a brand partner for $99. This is also the wholesale price. And we typically recommend to come in as a brand partner. Even if you don't have any intention necessarily to do the business or share it, you can always offset the cost of your patches by simply sharing with a couple of people in your life that you're wanting to bless. You're getting a spot on this incredible team, and you're actually paying less when you go with one of the enrollment kits. So these are 3 different enrollment kits for, as a brand partner, you can come on, you're just paying for the cost of your patches. There's no additional investment or commitment when you're coming on as a brand partner. And many of us have built a successful business with this. It's super fun to share it out. I do not have any experience in direct sales or network marketing. I come from the HR world. And we just have an amazing team. We have an amazing product, but we also leverage the amazing team and resources at our fingertips. No prior experience in sales or network marketing required. You can come in at one of these kits. You can upgrade to one of these kits later on down the road. The more that you purchase with these kits, the more product that you purchase, the more you're going to be saving. There's also a generous compensation plan. I'm proud to say that I have now surpassed my corporate HR career income by being in this business for 16 months, growing a phenomenal team of powerhouses that want to give hope to humanity with this amazing phototherapy patch. Really, it's all about health freedom, financial freedom, and time freedom. But if you don't have your health, right, none of this matters. So it really starts at the foundation with your health. Dr. John Harmon, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on the call tonight. This was,
Absolutely.
very inspiring for everyone that was on the call. You've inspired me. And I really, really appreciate your time and everyone's time for coming on here tonight, also sharing your stories, your testimonials, those that did too. I encourage you to reach out to the person that invited you on the call, and they can answer more of your questions, help you to find information, and also, look forward to having you on this incredible LifeWave team.